All right, what we're going to go over now is the other half of your meal card. So we went over the grocery list, if you will, or the food list. On the other side is actually where you will be writing down the instructions I give you in terms of food quantity. So let me explain briefly how this works. You'll notice every row is a different meal. So this is meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, meal 4, meal 5, and 6. And then you'll notice going down the columns here is week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Repeating here, week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. This card is for a month's worth of meals, up to 6 meals a day. And how this works is very simple. I will tell you in an email or in your members account, I will say for meal 1, you will be having 2 palms of protein. So you write over here, 2 palms of protein. What's a palm look like? Again, it's the volume of your palm. Then I'll say 1 thumb of fat. I might say 3 glasses of water. And I might say for meal 1 also 2 fists of vegetables, 1 fist of grain, 2 fists of fruit. This is just random stuff I'm writing down right now. Don't take it too seriously. But that essentially is what I'm telling you to eat. And that is how you do meal 1. And I might tell you something similar for meal 2 and 3. And then I might say you're not having a meal 4, you're not having a meal 5, and you're not having a meal 6 for the first week. Same thing over here. And that is what your first week of meals would look like. Now, how do we create a meal? This is where it gets interesting. 2 palms of protein. You flip it over. You go into the protein section. You take note of what I told you to do in terms of your first meal. So meal 1, EN foods. EN 1 and 2, right? Arrow pointing down foods. And I said 2 palms. So I'm really going to quickly just pick something here. Beef. 2 palms of beef. That's my first meal. I made that on the spot decision in the kitchen. Start preparing my beef. Next thing, thumb of fat. 1 thumb of fat. I go into the fat section here, focusing on EN stuff, and I'm going to say Brazil nuts. So maybe 2 or 3 or 5 would fit in my thumb, and I'm going to put that in my meal. Put that in the plate. Finally, 3 glasses of water. You don't have to actually line up 3 glasses of water, just make sure you have it. 2 fists of vegetables. 1, 2. I go into vegetables. Remember, we're looking at arrows pointing down stuff. So I go over here and I say, you know what, I'm going to have 1 fist is going to come from broccoli and another one is going to come from cucumber. And that'll account for my 2 fists of vegetables. I'm going to avoid what's written over here because these are arrow pointing up foods. And I'm also going to pick EN only foods. Actually, these are EC vegetables, cucumber and broccoli. So I'm actually going to scratch that and I'm going to say asparagus and celery, both EN arrow pointing down foods, 2 fists worth. So that's taken care of. 1 fist of grain. If I go into grains over here, okay, it's got to be arrow pointing down. So all I have available to me is manna bread, EN2, and Ezekiel bread. So I'll take 1 fist of Ezekiel bread. And then finally, 2 fists of fruit. Again, it's got to be arrow pointing down, EN food. So I see that the only thing that's available for me in that regard are olives and avocados. All right. So I think I'm going to go with avocados. I'll have 2 fists of avocados. And there you go. Meal 1 has been prepared. If ever I say negate or avoid anything in the orange section, so that would be dairy and legumes, and I do this often actually, you would just put an X over here for week 1. Week 1, you will not be eating anything from that color group. Week 2 might be a different color. Week 3 might be a different color. But sometimes with specific individuals, I might just say, do not eat anything from the orange list. Or I might say something even more specific, do not eat eggs at all, but everything else is fine. And what I would expect you to do is that you just cross out eggs if I say don't do that for the next month. Or I could even say over here, like I had written before, avoid eggs, avoid dairy. And you write that down however you want, but it's written there and you know that you're not going to be having any cream, cheese, cottage cheese, and you would just block those out, or you could just write it here, whatever you want, because it might change. But in the case of food sensitivities, it'll usually go on for a few months if you have to knock something out. And that's what this little section is for. If I say in week 2 that you're not going to eat anything from this little green color, then you know that you're not eating anything from here for whatever reason. Once you've eaten a meal, you'll have a sensation. You'll have a reaction to that meal. And I want you to become aware of how your body feels when you eat something. A lot of people are simply not aware of how they feel after a meal. They're kind of numb to the sensation of eating food, and they're not able to make the right food choices because they just don't know whether they feel good or bad, because they're always in this kind of state of being numb and dulled by the foods that they eat. So after you eat a meal, let's say meal 1, I want you to write down how you feel, and you have a list of potential side effects over here. So let's say you feel a headache after you eat meal 1. You're going to write this here. This is a Monday on meal 1, and you got a headache, and you also developed some anxiety about 1 to 2 hours after eating it. It's written right over here. So you put a 1 and 2, and you leave a lot of space because you have to do this for the next week. And then on the Tuesday, you had the same thing. You had anxiety, number 2, and then you even felt jittery and wired energy, and a 3. And then Wednesday, same thing, a 1 and a 2. Thursday, a 3 and a 2. Notice how I'm continuing it over here. This is the same week. This is week 1, and this is your response box for week 1. Thursday, a 1 and a 2. Friday, a 2 and a 3. Saturday and Sunday, a 2, 2. And I'm just seeing a bunch of 1s and 2s. And when I ask you to take a photo of your meal card for me, I'll say every week, send me a bunch of photos of your meal card. I'll be looking at this, and I'll say, hey, this person has a lot of 1s, 2s, and 3s. Well, if you're having any symptoms that are from 1, 2, and 3, that's a sign that you're having too many carbs. And guess what I'm going to do? The next week, I'm going to reduce the amount of carbohydrates in your diet. So in week 2, I go into this little carbohydrate section over here, and I'm going to reduce your fruits to 0.5, right? I'm going to reduce your grains to 0, and I'm going to keep your veggies up. And there you go. I've just adjusted your meal plan based on how your body reacts and feels according to the food structure that I've provided for you. And I might keep this the same, right? And I would do that for every meal and every day, and that would continue on for a month, and so on and so forth. And you're just writing your symptoms. I'm checking out how your body is reacting. You're telling me how you feel through messages, and I'm constantly adjusting and changing food quantity, food type, food timing, you name it. It's always changing. You got this section over here, numbers 1 to 7, talk about symptoms you'll get if you have too many carbs. If you have too many fats or protein, you'll be writing numbers 14 to 19. And a healthy response will lie between 8 and 13. And these are all symptoms you should write down 1 to 2 hours after eating, meaning based on how you feel 1 to 2 hours after eating, that's what you're writing down. And writing this down is very, very important. It makes this system very, very customized and adaptable to how you feel and your needs. And that's basically how it works. And you would fill this out for a month's period of time. When you're done with these specific cards, you would simply get yourself another pair, and you're good for the next month. And that is the MTS meal card system. That's how it works.